On myViewBoard for Windows, we have two movable toolbars which will make our experience much easier. First and foremost, along the bottom, we have a toolbar that will basically contain all of the things that we'll use to interact with the canvas. There is a little axis tool here in the middle, which will actually allow us to drag that to wherever we would like on the screen. So for example, I'd prefer this to be on my right-hand side. The other toolbar is more of a navigation bar, so it will allow us to switch between tabs, add a new page, and again in the same fashion we have this axis where we can actually move this to wherever we find convenient on the screen. In terms of utilising the general canvas itself, what we operate is something called an infinity canvas. Now for example, if I want to write onto the screen, so if I've got a math sum, what it will actually allow me to do on the screen with our infinity canvas tool is to select the tool and then basically zoom in and out. Essentially what this means is we've got a limitless amount of space on the page. It will allow us to add extra room for annotations and if you want to integrate other bits of media or videos, for example. As well as having that infinity canvas that we talked about earlier, we also have the option to have multiple pages on our myViewBoard whiteboard canvas. At the bottom on our navigation bar, we have an arrow that points left and an arrow that points right. This will allow us to navigate left and right between the slides. Next to that is an icon of a little page with a plus button. This will allow us to add in more pages. For example, if I want to add in my second page, add another page and add my third page, then of course that will allow me to use those arrows to navigate between the pages that I've created. On our toolbar we have a variety of pens. If we tap the pen icon, it will actually open and allow us to use a number of different pens. So for example, if we want to use a normal pen, a paintbrush, a highlighter, and at the same time, with all these individual brushes, we actually get the option to change the colours, the transparency, and the size. So for example, if I want to, on this occasion, use my paintbrush to just write hello, I can do that with that pen. At the same time, I can also use my highlighters, for example, specify the colour that I need, and highlight whatever it is that I'm needing to highlight on my particular canvas. If we want to remove these, below the pen tool we have a rubber tool. If I click on the rubber, we have the same option. If we double tap it, we have the option to specify the size of the rubber and of course rub the shapes like so. Alternatively, if we want to actually specify an entire area and remove it altogether, we can click on that rubber tool. In the top hand corner there is a little icon that will specify that we can draw around, and then all we need to do is draw around the area that we want to remove and that will disappear. Another useful tool on the myViewBoard toolbar is the ability to import shapes really quite easily. If we click on that little shapes tool below, again, similar to the way that it works with the pens, it will bring up a different set of preferences for how you want to use your shapes. You can pick your shape, colour, transparency, size. At the bottom you can actually see there's the ability to flick not only between 2D shapes but also 3D shapes, lines and graphs, and we can also use a table. Whenever we want to actually open that shape, all we need to do is specify which shape we'd want. So for example, in this scenario I'm going to grab a circle and I'm just going to use my finger to specify the area that I would like to put that shape in. As you can see, whenever you put an object out, a small options area comes up next to it. For example, if I wanted to change the colour, we have options to change colours. So for example, if we wanted to make that white, we can do so. And at the same time, there are options including copy and paste, fill, and all options that you will probably be quite familiar with from other softwares. If we want to select and manipulate icons on the canvas, what we can do is simply use our selection tool on our toolbar. This is this icon here with the square with the arrow pointing into it. What we can then do is basically tap on the icon that we want to change. As you can see, a little box comes up to specify that we've selected this icon. What I can actually do now is shape that to the size and shape and angle that I would like, and then drag it to wherever I need. So in this particular scenario, I'm moving Rome into its appropriate location on our geography lesson. If we want to manipulate several things at once, what we can do is actually draw around all of them together. So for example, rather than just selecting one, we can actually draw around 3 icons together. From this part, we can actually move them all as one without having to use any specific buttons to group them. If we want to sort of change the size and shape and the angle again, they will all work together in conjunction. Once we've tapped off that, that grouping will break and they will return back to being single entities. The central hub of the myViewBoard software is called the Magic Box. This is the icon on the toolbar that looks like a cardboard box with 3 blue icons popping out of it. This is the central hub for the software and essentially where all the key things occur. First and foremost, we can open anything from our local storage from the Magic Box. So as you can see, I have a number of files that we can open. Alternatively, if I've actually connected up my cloud drives, in this particular scenario, I've connected my Google Drive and my Dropbox, I can also actually access things directly from there. In order to actually embed them onto the canvas, all I would need to do is find the file types that I'm actually after and simply drag and drop them out onto the canvas. For example, in this particular scenario, if I want to drag an image, I can simply drag that from my Google Drive, drag and drop that onto the canvas, and as we can see, that will pop straight out onto the canvas. From there, of course, we can use our selecting tool to just specify how big we want it and put it on whatever area of the screen that we need. If we want to open a specific file, such as a presentation, again, we can go to the particular area of the Magic Box that we need to find, and we can open it again in the same fashion, simply by dragging it across. So for example, in this particular scenario, I've actually specified some lessons that I can simply drag and drop onto the canvas, which will download from my Google Drive and arrive onto the canvas, like so. Within the Magic Box, we also have the ability to integrate images from the internet and also videos from YouTube and myViewBoard clips, where we curate over 2 million educational videos. First and foremost, all we need to do is open our Magic Box. From this area, you can see along the top we've got some icons. One of them is YouTube, and on either side we've got the images icon and the myViewBoard clips icon. If we want to search for something and then drag it out onto the canvas, all we need to do is type in the search bar what we need and simply drag and drop that out onto the canvas. For example, with my YouTube video, which I've already dragged in, as soon as I'm ready to do so, I can hit play and that video will play directly. It will also strip out all the adverts and all the autoplay. In the same fashion with myViewBoard clips, all you need to do is find the right icon, search for that specific search term, and hit search. As soon as you've searched, as you can see, and we'll full screen that so you can get a better view of it, it will actually bring up more relevant educational videos than ones you might find on YouTube. So for example, I can find the video that I need to find and then double tap that to embed it onto the canvas. If we want to change the backgrounds on our myViewBoard whiteboard canvas, what we can do is go to the bottom right where there is an icon here in the corner. If we tap on that, that will basically open up a background menu. Along the bottom, there are different types of backgrounds we can use. First and foremost, we have a colour palette, which of course we can change between the colours. We can also use some preset images that are there. So for example, there might be some writing lines you might want to use, some music claves, and also some other ideas for lesson types. There is also an option along the bottom with the arrow pointing up into it, which will allow you to actually upload your own file. So if you want to have a background that you've specified prior to the lesson or your presentation, you can simply upload that as well as a background. Finally, there is an option at the bottom here for turning on squares on and off. So for maths, for example, if we just change the colour, we can actually set the squares on and set the squares off. Within the Magic Box, we also have a nice comprehensive set of tools. For example, all we need to do is go to our Magic Box, again look along the top for the icon that denotes tools, click on that icon and then drag in any of the tools that we wish to import into the canvas. For example, if I wanted a stopwatch, I can simply drag and drop that out onto the canvas and then specify that to the time that I need for this particular element of my lesson or presentation. Alternatively, if we were doing something like maths, we might want to drag in a protractor or ruler or any of the other specified items on there. A good example of how we can combine these tools is in this lesson example here. For example, what I've done is I've gone to our Magic Box and used my images to basically find planets. Once I've found these planets, I've dragged and dropped them out onto my canvas. As you can see, I've also used the pens to label them. Now, using my infinity canvas, what I can actually do is build an entire solar system together and zoom in only on the relevant parts for my lesson. So for example, at the moment we're zoomed in on the moon and the earth, but using my infinity canvas tool, I can actually zoom out and give us a better perspective of the solar system in its entirety. And of course, I can then move to individual elements and planets which need to be discussed. So for example, if we want to look at the sun specifically, we can look at the sun, then of course we can always zoom out and come back into the earth, the moon and Mars. On the navigation toolbar, we also actually have an embedded browser. This will enable you to browse directly from within myViewBoard and without having to switch to different programs and different tabs. Along the bottom navigation bar, you'll see there's this icon here, which denotes the browser. Once I open this, this will enable me to browse directly within myViewBoard. For example, I'm just going to go down to one of my favorite tabs that I've preset. This is going to be our ViewSonic website. What this will do is it will load directly within our canvas. Once this is loaded, this will enable me to browse directly on that website, but from within myViewBoard. There's also a really nice option here which will allow you to use the pens and annotation tools. So for example, if there's an element of the website that you're browsing that you want to annotate, for example, you can do so. There is also this shutter button here, which is quite nicely, which will allow you to basically take a screenshot of whatever it is that you're browsing for, and that will automatically paste that onto the whiteboard. So for example, when I come off here, we've actually now pasted that image directly onto our whiteboard. The Immersive Reader is a really useful tool for analysing grammar and also translating. If we have a body of text on our canvas and we select it using our select tool, we have our menu that comes up. One of the icons that comes up is this open book. That is our Immersive Reader. If we tap that, it will take us to a slightly different area of our software, which is where the Immersive Reader sits. From here, what we can do is we can basically change our preferences. So for example, if we want to change the size smaller, we can also get the Immersive Reader to read the text out to us.
In the future world of 1984.
What we can also do is change the grammar settings. So for example, if we want to split those words up into syllables, for some of our students, for example, we can actually split those words up into the syllables there by turning this radio button on and off. Alternatively, you can also highlight different types of speech. So for example, if you wanted to highlight nouns specifically, we could turn the radio button on for nouns, verbs, adjectives, etc. Of course, as well, you can also change the colours of which refers to which particular word type. The third icon along the top will basically allow you to translate the document as well. For example, this particular document we have in English, what we can do is we can choose the language that we want to translate in. So for example, if we do it down to French, just for the sake of argument, we're going to translate that, and then all we need to do is click that radio button to document, and therefore it will change the entire document into French. If I just exit those little menus there, as you can see, we have the document now in French. We've maintained the grammar options that we specified prior to the conversion, and at the same time also we still have this option to press play to have it read aloud in that particular language.
Dans le monde futur de 1984, le monde est divisé en trois super...
This is a fantastic tool for grammar, for English literature, English language, and of course if you ever need to translate for modern foreign languages, or if you have pupils who need to access content in different languages. In myViewBoard windows, you actually have the option to use the toolset outside of the canvas and on different programs as well as myViewBoard. At the top of our toolbar, you can see that there is an icon that looks just like the Windows icon. If we tap that, what that will do is it will take us outside of myViewBoard into our normal Windows background. As you can see, we've actually still maintained the toolbar that we had use of prior to switching over to our windows. From here, of course, what we can do is then open that and simply use the tools that we are used to using before. So for example, if we were on a different program, if we're on the desktop, we wanted to use the pen, we wanted to use the shapes, for example, it's really easy to do that. One thing that's also particularly useful, it will allow us to actually take screen grabs from anything that we're using and then import them directly back into myViewBoard. For example, this little icon here, that's shutter, will basically allow us to take a full screenshot, a partial screenshot, or like a squared screenshot. For example, if I wanted to take a little element of what we've done on our desktop out, I can specify the area that I want to crop out. And then as soon as I've finished that, that will automatically import that back into my viewboard for us. And again, once I've grabbed hold of that, if I want to use my Infinity Canvas tool, for example, I can just grab that and specify it to the size that I need to work with on my presentation or lesson. At the same time, whilst we're in Windows, if we don't want to actually screenshot something, we just want to flick between, at the top of the toolbar now, rather than the Windows icon, you'll now see the whiteboard icon. So all you need to do is click the whiteboard icon to take us back into my ViewBoard whiteboard. Another useful feature that we've built into my ViewBoard is the ability to record the screen and also pick up audio. For example, along the top of our toolbar here, we have this shutter icon. We've used this previously to take screenshots, but at the same time, there is a camcorder icon which will allow us to record the screen. What I would like to do here is record the screen because I'm actually going to be recording a cover lesson that I'm not going to be present to actually deliver myself. Once I've pressed this icon, it will bring up this little video box, which will basically allow me to specify my settings. So for example, if I want to check what the microphone it's using and what speakers, for example. When I'm ready to start my video, all I need to do is press the video icon on the end. Once I've done that, it can ask me to specify the resolution that I want to record in. So in this case, I'm just going to do it in 2080 by 720. As soon as I hit play to go, it will count me in, and then from there it will pick up everything that I'm doing. So for example, in my fractions lesson, I might be specifying to the class that although I'm not there, I can lead a session about fractions of 4 and how we can actually break that down into 1/2 as a half instead. Once I hit stop on the recording video, that will actually have picked up everything that I've done on the screen. And of course, if I've plugged in a microphone to the viewboard or done it from an external device, it will actually pick up all of the audio as well. So for pupils who are unable to be there, or teachers, for example, who are unable to be there, lessons and presentations can be delivered without actually physically having to be there. If we ever have a scenario in which we need subtitles for our presentation, there's a really nice option to put this on. Providing you've got a microphone attached to the device you're using, so for example, if you're using my ViewBoard Windows from your computer, it will be the microphone of the computer. Alternatively, if you're using it directly from the board, it needs to be connected with a microphone to the board. On the bottom navigation bar, you'll see along the bottom here, we've got some options that look like a microphone. The one on the far right-hand side will actually turn subtitles on. As soon as I turn this on, this will actually pick up everything that I'm saying. Good morning, class. Welcome. Today we're going to talk about fractions. As you can see, that picked up all the things that I was saying with the subtitles. This is particularly useful if you have any pupils with audio impairments, and also if you're ever doing distance learning, for example, if your connection's not quite amazing, it might be useful to have that on as well as the connecting via Zoom, Teams, or however you choose to do those particular deliveries. If you want to have multiple users interacting on the canvas at the same time, the IFPs actually enable a multi-touch, whereby you can have several people registering touches at the same time. Obviously this works on the main canvas, but if we want, we can actually separate our canvases into multiple ones as well. At the bottom here, you can see that we have a button next to the background menu. This is to enable multiple canvases. Once I open this, it'll come up with a quick message, just pre-warning us that using this might not work if we're not using a compatible IFP like a ViewSonic ViewBoard. Once I get rid of this message, as you can see, I've now got 3 separate canvases that we can have simultaneous work going on. At the moment, of course, it's just myself and Jack, so we actually don't need the 3 canvases. We can have 1, we can have 2, we can have 3, 4, and up to 6. So the maximum that you can have is 6 different users working simultaneously at the viewboard. In this particular scenario, myself and Jack are the only people who are going to be participating, so for that reason I've just split it into 2, and at this moment myself and Jack can now take the pen each, and we can basically write simultaneously and complete our own tasks at the same time. As you can see, the touches are being registered at the same time, even though we're writing on 2 separate sides of the screen. One really useful tool within the myViewBoard toolset is the AI pen. In our normal pens, once we've clicked on it, we'll actually see along the bottom that we can change our pen to this AI pen. Now what this will do is it will use artificial intelligence to work out what it is that we've drawn and then find an appropriate clip art or image from the internet. So for example, I'm going to draw a cat. I'm not a particularly a very good drawer. So once I've done my cat, what it will do is hopefully find that image of that cat. As you can see there, I've got the clip art, which I can then drag and drop out onto the canvas. Alternatively, if I want to actually use an image from the internet rather than the clip art that's been provided, I simply need to hold down on the cat and it will bring me up a Google image from our embedded browser, which of course, the same fashion that I've done so with image importation before, I simply just need to drag and drop onto the canvas. So the AI pen basically enables us to move from making a drawing ourselves to giving us clip art and also allowing us to actually integrate a really good detailed image from the internet. If we want to interact with our pupils with a poll or a quiz, what we can actually do is go to our magic box, and along the top icon, the one at the far end, we have this option to set up a poll or a quiz. Now for the person who's hosting the poll or quiz, once you've tapped this icon, it will give you these options here. So whether you want to create a multiple choice, true or false, rating, free format, voting, it will basically allow you to do all these different things. So for example, if I want to do a multiple choice, I will basically tap on the multiple choice icon, type in the question that I want, specify which answer's correct, so I can type as well which answers they would like to be, and then I'm ready to actually use the questions that I've made. Now if I go back to the main poll and quiz part, what you can actually see in this top right corner is this little scan button here as well. So that QR code, once I've tapped on that, will allow me to have pupils to scan that particular QR code, and again, if they want to use the companion app, they can do so instead. But what I can do is I can scan that and join a quiz. Now, as soon as I've done that, and I click on my question and send it out, so just for the sake of this, I'm just going to do that. I'm going to say the correct answer was option 1. Now, as soon as I press that tick button, what that's going to do is send the question out to my pupils. So at the moment, the pupils who are logged in with the QR code will be able to see something here that says wait for question. Now, as soon as I press this tick, it will send the question directly to the students. So for example, that's been sent. As soon as I hit play, that will push that out directly to the pupils' devices. Now, as you can see on my device, that poll and quiz question has been sent directly to the devices. Now, as a pupil, I might select the option 1 as the answer and then click to submit it. Now, once this is sent, you can see on the board itself, we've got a little icon there that denotes that there's been one response, so that'll be my response. Once I'm ready, I can either let the timer go all the way down or I can simply press stop if I know everybody's finished. And then the little icon at the end will actually allow me to have a look at what the results were. So for example, I can see that there was one response and that person responded correctly because it's in green. And I can also see the quantify who's answered what and who's answered correctly, who's answered incorrectly, and just get a general feel for who's sort of on track and who perhaps needs some more support within the class.